Hi everyone, this small video viewlet will explain exactly how to cook beef ribs. Now I know that pork ribs are tasty, they're fairly simple, they are delicious indeed, but these beef ribs, well, there's a certain zen to them. There's a lot of meat on them, and they're a fairly rare bird, so if you happen to find a cryo-vacuumed package of 4 slabs of beef ribs at your local Sam's Club or Costco, don't be afraid of them. Yes, it's a lot of meat and beef, and it's a fair amount of work. But trust me, your patience, your work, and your efforts will be rewarded. What you see before you are 4 slabs of beef short ribs. Now, they're not that short, actually. They're 12 to 14 inches long. And in my case, living in Minnesota, the only way I could purchase them was to buy a full package of 15 of them. If you're fortunate enough to just buy 1 slab, 4 bones is plenty enough beef ribs to feed a whole family of 4 or 5 people. First thing you need to do is peel this membrane off the back of each slab. It's easier than it looks. Just use a knife to help get yourself started, and you can literally peel it away. If you need some help, use a paper towel between your fingers and the membrane. It will cut down on the slipperiness and help you get a grip to just rip that sucker off. Here are all 4 slabs again, with that pesky membrane torn off and some of the fat trimmed as well. The back side of these slabs, you should be fairly close to the bone. And before we flip them back over to the other side, I'm going to go ahead and season them with a dry rub. In addition to regular Worcestershire sauce, I've noticed that stores are now selling thick Worcestershire sauce. This is a godsend for cooks. It's thicker, it sticks to meat a little better than the watery traditional Worcestershire sauce, and I use it as a glue to help the dry rub stick. So spread a fairly thin but noticeable layer of thick Worcestershire sauce to the back of each slab of your ribs. Now shake on a generous helping of a good dry rub. I make my own dry rub out of equal amounts of smoked paprika, kosher salt, fresh ground pepper, chipotle chili powder, and brown sugar. Don't be shy. Spread it on nice and thick. Once you've lubed up and rubbed the back side of your ribs, flip them over. The front side needs a good trimming. We need to get quite a bit of that fat cut off. There is plenty of fat left inside the meat to add flavor and to help break down the connective tissue, trust me. So you're going to want to trim as much of this surface fat off of the front side of each slab of ribs as you can. Once the front or top side of each slab is trimmed, you should have 4 really nice crimson colored slabs of beef ribs just ready for the grill. Don't forget, we need to dry rub this side of each slab as well. All of that trimming and prepping and slicing is much easier when the ribs are cold, so I try to do that as soon as I can get the ribs right out of the refrigerator or right after they're thawed. However, before you start smoking them, you're going to want to wrap them tightly in plastic wrap and let them sit out overnight to come up to room temperature. This will also give your dry rub a chance to melt down a little bit and become one with the meat. I told you there was zen about beef ribs. Okay, note that our dry rub has now sort of melded into this ooey gooey spicy goodness that covers each of the slabs of ribs. This is perfect. It's exactly what we want. Lay your ribs out in your cooker and make sure that you have indirect heat. If you have a heat source directly under the ribs, well, they're going to sit there for about 6 hours, so a direct heat source would burn them. You can use the oven or a crock pot. I'm partial, however, to that smoky flavor, so I put them on the smoker and I set the temperature to 225 degrees. Time to lid up the smoker and leave them alone. I employ a 3-2-1 strategy. That's 3 hours on the smoker at 225 degrees, followed by 2 hours on the smoker in a covered tray, and I'll show you that in just a second, and then finally 1 hour back on the smoker just to finish them up. Let's take a look. I'm not quite to 225, but I'm getting there. It was only 5 degrees above zero and very windy this day, so I was adding a lot of wood. You do want 225 to 250 degrees. After 3 solid hours of smoking, it's time to pull your ribs off and place them in a pan like this one. What you see here in the measuring cup is a mixture of half apple cider vinegar and half regular apple cider. I will pour that over the slabs of ribs and let it pool in the bottom of this pan. Then I'm going to put the pan with the ribs right back on the smoker. The liquid in this pan will help steam and add flavor to the ribs. Cover the pan with foil and put it back on the smoker for 2 more hours. At the end of the 2-hour smoke, look what we've got. The meat is starting to pull away from the ends of the bones. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want. Quite a bit of the fat has been rendered out, and we have a lovely smoky char on the outside of these ribs. They're almost there. All we need to do now is put the slabs back on outside of the pan. Lay them right back on the smoker like they were when you first started, and let them finish up for about 1 extra hour. Okay, notice that the last hour of time spent in the smoker has blackened up the char a little bit on the outside of our slabs of ribs. It is delicious. I used a cleaver to cut the bones apart, and you can see all that connective tissue and fat have been rendered away for the most part. There's a hefty amount of meat on each bone, and they were absolutely spectacular. If you don't believe me, ask my buddy Mark. I think beef ribs were all he ate for the next 3 consecutive days. In the end, we found that the meat didn't just fall off the bone by itself. There was just enough pull to where each one of us could get a good bite and pull the meat cleanly off the bone with our teeth. They were absolutely delicious. I hope this video has taken some of the fear away from a giant slab of beef ribs. By all means, take the time, experiment, give it your best shot. Your patience will be rewarded.